Good evening and welcome to Why Did Not You Warn Me? I'm your host, Matthew the Dr. Danko.
And I'm Hillary Crumb, known on Twitter as pumpkin_crumb. And I don't know. Any suggestions for a new Twitter handle would be dope.
Yeah, I mean, like I've told you back in the day when I started Twitter, it used to be Think Dank, which I think had an underscore in it.
I mean, it's better than Danko be pimpin', although only marginally.
Danko be pimpin' was pretty good.
Remember that time that you had to call Amazon and they asked if there were any other email addresses associated with the account?
Yeah. Because normally I just use mdanko930 because that's the one I use all the time.
Because you're an adult.
But, you know, this was the first Amazon account that I had made that I had the order under. So they didn't have mdanko930.
And the woman could hear me laughing.
Audibly, because I'm like, oh, God. I have to explain Danko B pimpin'. Not B-E, mind you, just the letter B. Because it's cooler.
Yes, that's how I describe Danko B pimpin'.
Yeah.
Anyway, my best friend Devin, I've told you a million times, is responsible for creating my Twitter. And she texted me, she's like, so your username is pumpkin_crumb. You can change it. It's okay.
I mean, that's an inside joke between you guys.
It is. Devin's also getting a book published, which means nothing to anyone else, but it's very exciting for
very
her
cool thing,
and also for me because I love her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be excited to read it.
Yeah, I've read, I think, the first couple of pages. I was a terrible friend in terms of helping edit that because I don't like reading on a computer screen.
Yeah.
I'd so much rather read an actual book. So
that's fair.
When I can go buy it in a store, I'll buy like 4 copies to support her.
Well, that's cool.
Sorry for being a shit friend. I'll do better in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, if she gets it published like she wants and seems like it's going to happen, then you can buy it in the store. That
would be so exciting. I'm going to take 1,000,000 selfies with Devin's book and be like, I know the author.
And we could do a little ad for it here.
And we will.
Yeah.
I wish I knew the title.
Well, it'll all come.
Yeah.
I used to do ads on the Matthew Danko podcast.
Don't call it that.
Because I had an account with Fiverr, which is like $5, just sell your services, basically.
Right, I remember you telling me about that.
But I couldn't exactly monitor or restrict the things that I was advertising for, because once they place an order, you have to do it to get your $5.
Gotcha, and you are a whore for $5.
For $5, I was.
Do anything.
Exactly. But it was all right. There were some cool things that I advertised for. I did advertise for a book. I made like a little introduction for it and whatnot.
See, you should have gotten commission, because I bet the stuff that you advertised sold better because you don't half-ass anything.
Yeah, it was like this. It was kind of like a young adult novel with an apocalypse type storyline.
Was it the 100?
No, but it's similar.
Okay.
So I made like a fake distress signal call, and
of course,
because I did that sound class in college, and we did like radio plays and shit.
You're a sound guy.
Okay, but if you listen to last week's episode, it's
sound
not evident
like it.
at all. Like, I cannot wait until we move to our new place and have like a room separate to do these in, because we have a wall here that's just glass.
Also, you might hear the hissing and bubbling of the crock pot because I'm making carnitas.
And you'll definitely hear the
HVAC thing. And
just kick on every now and then.
Our fridge makes noises.
Yeah.
It's a very chatty room that we're in.
I hate it.
I don't mind.
But I don't like editing shit.
Right. I know the sound is piped right into your brain because you're wearing headphones.
And I'd like you to wear headphones, but
I don't like to be contained.
When we move into our new place, you're getting a set of headphones.
I do what I want when I want.
You're gonna wear headphones.
Anyway.
So a couple cool things about our podcast. I'm working on a theme song for it because
he just sits there giggling and playing stock music.
Okay, it's royalty-free music that I found a dozen of them that I want your opinion on, but you just have no interest in.
I've been in no mood.
I know, and that's a shame because this is our podcast. But I've been working on a theme song using one of the tracks. there's our refrigerator. It's real loud in here. But yeah, it's just some random music that kind of gives me the vibe of what our show is. So I wanted to make a little track, and a lot of theme songs back in the day at least tell a story. So they tell you what the show's going to be about. This just has like our usernames and then the name of our show. It's something small, but it's kind of cool. And once I finalize it, and I'm going to do like 3 of them and then give you the option to pick one of them.
Me or our loyal listeners?
You mean our moms? No.
My mom doesn't even listen to it. They're
That's true.
too long.
My buddies over at the Guys Talking About Shit podcast listen.
It's true. You can tell because they followed me on Twitter.
Ah, perfect.
I wanted to actually address the fact that we don't have a theme, because that has been like friends have mentioned, maybe you guys
like
should
a
have
theme,
a theme, like
not-
for our not
a
theme
theme
music.
song.
No, I'm moving away from that because it doesn't interest me.
Right, it's clear. But like a
so
thing
we were,
that our show is about.
Yeah, we were driving back from Pittsburgh, which is about a 7-hour drive for us. We were listening to one of Kevin Smith's many podcasts called
Smodcast?
Smodcast. Yeah, I was, sharing.
You want a podcast? I got a Smodcast. See,
Anyway.
they have a theme song.
Right, they have a song, but they don't have a theme. They just talk about whatever. And the cool thing about that podcast is that you can tell that it's 2 people who enjoy each other, who are really just dicking around because they enjoy it. And that is literally what we're doing.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, we might not make anything as cinematically great as Tusk, but we'll get
we can only hope that we don't
Hey.
make... I haven't seen
I
it, so I can't
hate
speak to
you.
it. That's fine. I hate you too. Let's date.
Perfect. No, but it is 2 guys having a fun conversation. They've been
Right.
doing it for so long that, when his buddy Scott Mosier moved to France, he kind of hasn't been able to do that. So he's been doing the other shows or having guests on, and it's good, but it's not the same as talking to your buddy on the podcast. So
Yeah, so I mean, I'm super chill with not having a theme and just talking about what we
Whatever.
enjoy talking about, because the reason we're doing this podcast is because you enjoy podcasting and
Right.
I enjoy you. So
And, because the Matthew Danko podcast
Don't
was
call it
just... thank you. Was just me. I didn't have somebody to banter with.
right. And I mean, you can monologue.
Yeah.
You have that capability. If you're not interrupted, you'll just sort of keep going.
Yeah, and that's exactly what that show was.
And that's not always what people want.
Well, here's
always what
a
I
fun
want.
fact. My podcast isn't about other people. It's about the Matthew Danko experience.
That's what it should have
Don't
been
call
called.
it that.
Title of
Definitely
your
don't.
sex tape.
No, but so like with our podcast, since I have somebody as my co-host, I want to give it a little more oomph with a theme song, and like I don't want us to have a theme about like what we're doing all the time, but I'm toying around with the ideas of segments and whatnot, because we sort of do, what you and I are both doing separately, and then we do
Right.
what we're doing that week together.
Right.
So like for my segment,
Are we
we're gonna
launching into
slide
it?
right into it.
We're not going to talk about what we did this week. You're just going to talk
No,
about
that's not. Oh my God! I'm saying we have to do what we've done separately so that we can talk about what we've done together. You get your turn, I get my turn, and then we get our turn.
So what pop culture have you been taking in this week?
No, we're
Matthew?
gonna talk about yours first.
No, because mine's going to take 30 seconds,
Yeah,
and
and
then
then we'll
45
talk
minutes later, we'll be done with the podcast.
Okay, I'm sorry. I took I took this shit seriously. Okay, you can't just not talk. This is a podcast. Why?
What do you want me to talk about?
I want to. What did you do this week? What have you been reading this week that you would like to share with our loyal listeners?
I finished reading Life of Pi,
Mm-hmm.
which had sort of a twist ending, but I kind of guessed that something like that was going to happen, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to spoil it. I am curious to see the movie now with the revelation of the twist ending, because
Yeah.
I'm curious if any of that would have played in visually. Because it could have, but it would have to be done very cleverly.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll watch that movie at some point.
Yeah, I remember seeing bits of it. I don't know if I've seen the whole movie,
Okay.
but I do remember we watched parts of it in film school.
Okay.
because of...
Right. Wasn't that Ang Lee?
Sounds right, but
I don't know.
we're going to look it
Okay.
up to give credit where credit is due.
So while he's looking that up,
Yeah.
I also started reading The Amazing Adventures of Kavalier and Clay because I kept talking about it and I remembered how much I enjoyed it. The core of this book is these two young, I think they're in their mid-teens. One of them is Samuel Clayman, who grew up a Brooklyn Jew, and Joseph Kavalier, who escaped Prague just before the Holocaust started, in a very clever way that plays into the book. And the two of them are cousins, so Joseph ends up going to live with Sammy in Brooklyn, and they realize that Sammy has always been fascinated by comics, but he doesn't have the artistic talent, and Joseph does. So they partner up, and basically it's sort of like in the universe of the book, DC exists, so I think they're sort of supposed to be Marvel-esque, but it's these two young boys that create a hero.
So they, like, the superheroes of DC are real in their universe?
DC Comics
They
exists.
Okay.
Like the comic books.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what
it's
it
not,
sounded
Batman's
like.
not in the world.
So when he was talking about Batman with that short little piece you told me about.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no. The comics exist.
Okay.
And it's sort of like this is the era of Superman. So Superman has just, like, the comics have just taken off. So every other publishing company is thinking, what can we do? We need our Superman.
Okay.
So these two boys swoop in with their idea. They don't have a hero, they don't have a story, but they're like, we can do that and we can do it better.
Right.
And I've read this book once already and I remember really liking it. But it's very dense, it's very literary. There's like every page there's a word I haven't seen before, which is...
So I'm going to love reading this book.
You will enjoy the chemistry between these two boys and all of the nods to the comic book industry.
Well, yeah.
Like, that part you will enjoy. I don't think that it will be an easy read for you.
Yeah.
It's not an easy read for me.
Yeah, that's why it's a little daunting.
Right, and I know, like, I've been carrying it around. Like, probably the majority of my books I keep in a storage unit, but we just went recently and I changed out a bunch of the ones that I'd been carrying since Utah for some new ones, because I reread books fairly frequently.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's like, people that watch TV go back to TV shows that they've seen before.
Oh, trust me, I know.
Right, it's characters that you like, a story that you're comfortable with.
There's a comfort thing.
Right. So I've been carrying this particular book around, not because I had any intention of rereading it, but because I think that you would be interested in it. But I think I've said before that it's a book to read when you have a bunch of free time.
Yeah.
Not really. Because you have to be willing to dedicate quite a chunk of time to it.
And I mean, it looks, the size of the book at least looks like one of the Harry Potter books.
Yeah, it's over 600 pages.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I do want to give it a shot because I trust your opinion and I do like generally everything, so...
Yeah, but it might be
it's content,
once we've settled down and bought a house 15 years from now, like...
Well, only because I'm still working on that Five Nights at Freddy's book that I was a quarter of a way, like almost finished with.
Right.
Plus, we're in the middle of Harry Potter, book 7, and they're like scattered things that I'm reading.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I know that this would not be an easy book for you to read. For most people, it will not be an easy book to read. But I think it's worth the time, especially because you enjoy comic books.
Right.
So,
for sure.
Yeah, so that's what I'm reading.
Give it a shot.
I'm probably still going to be reading it next week because it's pretty hefty.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. What about you? What pop culture have you been taking in this week?
Okay, so like we've said, it's not... I'm not going to exclude you from the conversation. I wanted to make it a little more, I didn't want it to be chaotic because I can ramble on for 2 hours about nothing. But, since each of us have something we've been doing this week, and then we do what we've been doing together, I was thinking of calling this "Why Did Not You Watch That?" Because I am just like, oh my god, this is so amazing. Why did not you watch that? You know, the sort of thing that I do. And it's funny because this particular thing that I watched this week isn't like the greatest cinematic thing of all time. It's just, it was a cool concept, and I've been meaning to watch it, and I just had the free time to do it, so I decided to do it.
So you want me to cut you off in like 40 minutes?
No, it's going to wrap up pretty nicely, I think.
It's like an hour.
Stop it. I'll make it that long. You can just leave. This will become the Matthew Danko podcast.
Don't call it that.
If you didn't, I would have. By the way, that was Ang Lee that directed that movie.
Life of Pi.
Yeah, The Life of Pi.
Great.
I looked it up. How did you pull Ang Lee? Did you look it up before?
I'm pretty sure, because I think that I saw that the movie was coming out obviously a while ago, and didn't Ang Lee also do Brokeback Mountain?
Yeah.
So that's why
And
I
The Hulk.
attached not as important
Yeah,
to me.
well, that's where I was thinking, like,
Right.
the guy who directed The Hulk directed Life of Pi. I mean, he directed a bunch of other shit too, like Crouching Tiger and
Whatever.
some like real movies as opposed to the 2003 version of The Hulk.
Right. But I took an adapting and revising class in college, and one of the pieces that we studied was Brokeback Mountain, adapting it from a short story into a movie, and we read the screenplay, and we talked a lot about Ang Lee's version of that story.
So that's cool.
Right. So anyway, why did not you watch that?
Please, that's so insulting to just sit back and pretend you're not going to participate.
Go ahead, darling.
Make it very hard to love you.
Why did not
Anyway.
you love me?
Anyways, so the movie I decided to watch this week is called The Stuff. It was a horror movie from the 80s by Larry Cohen, who did movies like Perfect Strangers and the movie Phone Booth. I don't know if any of these are going to ring a bell to you.
Nope.
Yeah. But it's about... So the movie starts out with this guy doing sort of like a patrol of the grounds at wherever he works. And he sees this thing bubbling in the ground, this white material, and it's snowing. And he sort of like scoops it up and then decides to taste it for some reason. But he's like, this shit's really good. Like, it's the greatest thing I've ever tasted. So he calls his buddy over and he tastes it too. And that's like a really weird thing. They literally just dig in the ground and like taste it. But they're like, this is so good, we can sell it to people. And so like the movie cuts from that to it already being everywhere. It's called The Stuff, and it looks like marshmallow fluff, but nobody really knows how it's made. There's like the competing companies that want the secrets to how it was made, and so like they can't get any ingredients on it. They don't know what's in it, but people are just addicted to it, out of their mind addicted to it. And this little boy can't sleep, and he comes down to get something from the fridge, and he sees like the stuff moving inside the fridge and starts freaking out. And then his dad comes down and is like, why are you out of bed, and all this other shit. And he's like, the stuff is moving. And the dad's like, doesn't want to hear it, and like just continues to eat it. Like the whole family is sort of brainwashed. In fact, everyone who eats the stuff is brainwashed. And then this little kid is like, the stuff, there's something wrong with it. It's moving, it's alive. And they're like, everything, like yogurt's alive and we eat that and it's good for you. So sit down and eat your stuff. And like he like goes crazy and goes to the grocery store and starts like destroying all of the stuff because he doesn't want anyone else to eat it. And then there's this whole side story with this former FBI agent who was hired by one of the competing companies to figure out...
You keep saying competing.
Yeah. Competing?
Yeah.
Whatever. Why not stop me? Why did not you warn me? How about that? And so his storyline is sort of to figure out what's in it, but also where it came from and all this other stuff. And like, it's a very cool concept because it's like a satire of consumerism and capitalism and all this other stuff. They make like a jingle out of it and like get all these celebrity endorsements for their commercials, but yet nobody really knows why they're addicted to it, like what it is, where it comes from. But like the movie itself is just super weird in how it's edited. There's a lot of ADR in weird places, and like the plot itself, there's like 2 or 3 different plots going on that kind of come in at weird times. So like there's what's his name? Fuck. I wrote all this shit down. Chocolate Chip Charlie, who's like a parody of Famous Amos, who's like been beaten by the people who make the stuff and wants to know why, because his dessert was the greatest at the time. And now everyone's just on the stuff, and like he tracks down the people, like the FDA was involved to approve it, and now they're addicted to the stuff, and sort of everyone is kind of, it's like almost sort of a conspiracy. And the thing is, they never really explain the stuff and like how it works. It comes from the earth and it's alive, and that's all they know about it. And then, you know, over the course of the movie, they realize that the people that, if you eat too much of the stuff, it sort of wears you like a suit. It kind of is in control of your body, and when it finishes with you, it like ejects itself out of you, out of your face, and leaves your dead body on the ground. And like if you stepped on it, it would turn to dust. Like it uses all of your resources and then moves on, I guess, to the next host. And like it's a super cool horror movie that has very little horror in it. Like that's really the only scary parts, or the how it like is a parasite sort of. And I'm using that term, like they never say or specify that in the movie. All the effects are pretty cheesy, and the way they solve some of their problems are like they figure out, the main guy, who's played by Michael Moriarty, who's been in just a bunch of random shit like Law and Order. He's the FBI agent, and he's at this hotel with the woman who was in charge of marketing the stuff, who realizes that the stuff is no good, and like she feels bad for doing it, like basically putting it out there for everyone. They're at this motel, and like the stuff comes out of one of their pillows and wraps around his face, and her first thought is, I'm gonna burn it. So she like douses it with like this kerosene stuff and lights it on fire, even though it's still attached to the dude's face. And I mean, it works, but it's
Seems
just
risky.
Yeah, like no risk of burning the guy, but like in that same scene they also do a thing where like the stuff comes out of the pillow and the bed, and it's sort of like consuming the room, and it's just like multiplying and multiplying. And they do this effect that was in A Nightmare on Elm Street, where they have the 2 actors in the scene like in harnesses bolted to something, and then they turn the whole room on its side to make it look like the stuff is creeping up the wall. It's a really cool effect. It's just also kind of weird how it's done, like so suddenly. Like the stuff just overtakes the room, and there are all these people. Like it almost turns into a sort of an apocalypse situation where you can't really trust anyone. You don't know who to trust because they have been consuming the stuff. And by the end of the movie, the only solution they have, they like blow up the reservoir that they've been taking the stuff from, and find the 2 guys who've been like running the company. They make them eat a bunch of the stuff, like to get them addicted to it, and then they put out like a warning on television and the radio to not eat it, like throw it out and all this other stuff. They even have this weird side plot where somebody that they're friends with is like this, no, I don't think he's a retiree. I think he's just like, he kind of went insane. But he's a colonel, or he was a colonel in the army, and so he like wants to fight. Basically, the Blob is what they're dealing with, but it's a consumable. So he wants to like take guns to it and like blow it up and do all this like military shit to it, and he has his army with him, like his buddies that were from the war. It's very chaotic and all over the place, but I think the concept of it was really cool, especially in the 80s. I don't know. I think it would have done better if it were a shorter story, like a Twilight Zone episode, or I guess today people watch the Black Mirror on Netflix, sort of these not localized but like isolated anthology stories that, like, you know, what would happen if everyone was addicted to this one product and the product wasn't from here, and like how do you combat it and shit like that. So like the movie definitely has some cool things involved in it, but like I don't know, there's just a lot of, they call people that are addicted to the stuff stuffies. And like one of the lines in the movie is I kind of like the sight of blood, but this is disgusting, because he blows up somebody that was addicted to the stuff, and it's just the white stuff that is now like coming out of his veins and shit. It's really weird and somewhat disturbing, but the concept of it just seemed really cool. I think even the guy that plays the FBI agent, which a lot of the plot just doesn't make sense. It's very hard to follow, and they jump around constantly. But like it could have been like an Alfred Hitchcock type movie. I don't know. I wish I could keep going with it. It's just it was a movie that's always been on my list because on a lot of the horror pages I follow on Facebook or Instagram, the stuff is always featured in some way, because it is like it's just a product that's been marketed for the masses that took them over and like brainwashed them. But the movie was nowhere near as clever as I thought it was going to be. In fact, I remember one time I saw the trailer for it, and it just like, it was not an infomercial type, but it was very much like selling you the stuff. And like, you'll love it and you'll never want anything but it, and just the stuff. It was like, it was like a marketing thing. And then I watched the movie and it was nothing like the trailer. In fact, I just want to know how the stuff works. Like, what is its motive? Is it just here? Like, it's alive, so it's somewhat sentient, and it senses danger, because when it's in one of the people, like, it'll either attack you to get you to not go after it, or like run away, like fight or flight type thing. It would be way more interesting if they updated it and did it now. But yeah, I don't know. It was just a cool horror movie that I stumbled upon once.
It's okay.
Yeah. That's all. And like, yeah, so if they updated it and made it today, I think it would play a lot better with capitalism and things like that. It probably did all right then. I didn't look up any reviews or anything like that, but Larry Cohen has some decent movies and some cult movies, like, so I don't know how horror fans reacted to the stuff, because it is sort of like a friendlier version of the Blob. But it was just cool. I don't know.
Good.
Yeah. So that was anticlimactic. But
it happened, and you're happy, and
yeah. So
that's all that matters.
I do think people should watch it. I think that they should also remake it.
Why don't you remake it? That can be your summer project.
Yeah. I mean, the budget was pretty low from what it looks like. And a lot of the shots of like the stuff taking over places were like miniature sets.
Gotcha.
And they would just like pour in like fire extinguisher foam or like marshmallow fluff or like soap. Like it could definitely be done today and probably a lot cheaper. I don't know. I would also make it another color other than white.
Yeah, white's not very menacing.
No, because the whole time and it's served in like a marshmallow container, so that's all I thought
like
of it.
Pepto-Bismol pink.
Well, then it'd be too much like the Blob, I think.
Oh, I have no frame of reference for that.
Yeah.
Make it purple with lime green stripes.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, yeah. Then you could still serve it in one of those containers, but it would look like a swirl or like a psychedelic thing.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
And the stripes wiggle to show sentience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Copyrighted.
And I do think there should have been way more like, because they do mention like this is the same sort of thing that Coca-Cola does, where they hide the secret formula and like references to real products that
Right.
a lot of people, like the masses, take in. But there was very little product awareness, sort of like, because it jumps from we should sell this to it already being everywhere.
Gotcha.
They do maybe one or two things with like, are you familiar with like Where's the Beef?
Vaguely.
You've heard it?
Yeah.
It was like a Wendy's commercial
Mhm,
back in the
yeah.
day that like Wendy's has the beef, and like this one old woman who I actually looked up her name because they use her in the movie in like a commercial TV spot.
Huh.
It's like, where's the stuff? Like, I want the stuff. And
Cute.
like, can't get enough of the stuff is like
Alright.
the theme song of it. So
We're very into theme songs today.
yes, because there should be a little showmanship in what you're selling.
This should
As
be
we
the greatest show.
learn from the Greatest Showman.
Yeah.
All right, so that was what I did this week.
Great.
Why did not you watch that?
Why did not you watch that?
That's the theme song
Ba-dum.
right there.
For that segment.
Yeah.
I just remembered we also went to the movies earlier this week.
What did we see?
Exactly. We saw Every Day.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because
shit.
it was based on a young adult novel by David Levithan.
Yeah.
That I, of course, have read.
Yeah, I don't read, so.
Right. David Levithan is a gay young adult author, and most of his stuff is super brilliant. They have kind of cheesy titles. I have Boy Meets Boy on my bookshelf. They're, the cute, kitschy young adult romance stories, but with gay guys.
Yeah.
Which is great.
It's dope.
The premise of Every Day.
I like the premise of Every Day.
You want to explain the premise?
No. I talked a whole bunch. It's your turn.
Okay.
Can't just sit back.
So the premise of Every Day is that the protagonist, whose name is A wakes up in a different person's body every day. Boy, girl, they're always around the same age, and within a general geographic region.
Mm-hmm.
So the morning that the story starts, A wakes up in a boy named Justin, whatever. He's a dick is what's important to the story. But Justin has this girlfriend named Rhiannon, and A manages to fall in love with Rhi during this one day. And they, because A is not male or female, A is just A.
A consciousness, yeah.
Right. Then wakes up in a different body the next day and is sort of, I don't want to say obsessed because that sounds very negative.
Yeah.
Is attached to this girl and
they
wants
had
to
a
find her again.
cool day together, and like A's whole thing is, they sort of just live the day as that person because he doesn't, or they don't want to,
don't
ruin
wanna,
their
make
lives.
waves,
Or
don't want it to be obvious.
So on this particular day when when A is Justin, they like run to the beach together and like skip
Do a
school.
lot of running.
Yeah, well, it's young adults. There's a lot of running.
They just run everywhere.
But they have really a cool date day together after
Right.
skipping school. So like A sort of falls in love with Rhi, or like becomes attached. It might not be love right away, but it's definitely like there's something about this person that they like.
Yeah.
So when they wake up in a different body the next day, they sort of seek out Ri again. And I believe it's a girl. I can't remember her name. Amy?
Yeah, I think
maybe?
Amy.
Yeah. So she like is a new student and wants to shadow Ri around. And then we get to see sort of who Justin is as a person and how he is in the relationship with Ri, which causes problems. You go.
Okay.
I keep doing that. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah, so Justin is kind of a dick. Just very self-centered, not sort of thinking of Ri as a status symbol rather than as a person that he's in love with.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, obviously. Yeah, so, and the cool thing is that, like, you know, obviously A doesn't like Justin because they're growing more attached to Rhiannon, but A doesn't really do anything to break them up, just says, you know, he's not great, huh? But,
yeah, basically.
Yeah. But, I mean, so the plot, well, there wasn't really a plot of the movie. It's sort of, we did not love this movie.
No, and from what you said, the book isn't much better. Like, it's sort of along the same lines.
Yeah, the book, I picked up the book because I love David Levithan, and also because John Green was one of the authors that got to pre-read the book before it came out. And so John Green gave sort of a synopsis and said that the book, you know, had a lot of commentary on gender and how it relates or doesn't to love. But I could not really find that in either the book or the movie. Like, it could have. All of the base material was there because A does not always wake up as a boy or as a girl. Like, they switched. That was, wow.
Yeah.
But Rhiannon is always female, and she has to, I mean, there could have been so much with her struggling to figure out, because, I mean, so much of being in love with someone, at least for me, is, you know, their physical being. Like,
Well, that's part of it, yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's not all of it, but you get attached to, you know, the physical casing of this personality that you love.
She sort of has to, like, adjust to the fact that A doesn't get to choose who they are. I mean, sort of, it comes out later, but, like, since A is a different person every day, it's gonna really, I mean, he sort of takes over the body of anyone, like, pushes their personality to the side, not completely away, but, like, A just inhabits a new body and a new life, but this one constant is Ri.
Right. And, like, there could have been so much more discussion of gender and of just, I mean, anything really pushing that sort of boundary. Being
in love with the mind versus, like...
Right. Because, I mean, there's been so much discussion recently of, like, the, you know, the rainbow, the plethora of all of these different sexualities.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm fairly social justice conscious, but I mean there are a lot of sexualities that are not represented well enough that I even know what any of the terms mean.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to misspeak. I think we were talking about this, and I think the closest to what Ri was experiencing would probably be
pansexual.
Yeah. Being in love with the personality and not the physical body. I don't know if that's right.
Yeah.
So I apologize if it's wrong. But yeah, and also there wasn't really a conflict in the movie.
I mean, the closest thing we get to a conflict is the boyfriend. At one point, like, A becomes some kid and, like, tracks her down at a party, and, like, he pretends he's gay just so that the boyfriend will sort of leave them alone.
Right.
They hang out, and then he, like, tells her she's beautiful or something like that, and then the boyfriend is like, he finds out that, the guy's not even related to who he says he was, and like goes after him, and he's very insecure about them hanging out, and just the sort of, like jock type.
Right.
I don't want my girlfriend being with any guy but me sort of thing, like even as friends.
Right.
Because it could have very easily been not a love story, but a friendship.
Yeah.
And I do think the idea of having them fall in love, especially in high school, when, you're sort of starting to figure things out, and like you're at the beginning of figuring things out. Like there was sort of it was very male focused. Like A sort of jumps into the mind of more males than females. And that just translates to people thinking that Ree is sleeping around or like in all these different weird relationships, and like there's some plot going on with her parents, like
that's just never explored. We don't really know what's happening or like, what we hope is gonna happen.
She has a big sister that drives her to school every day, but like that's all the time we get with them.
Right.
Because I would be interested to know if she actually like opened up to her sister, like what, because this is an unheard of situation. Like this person that I'm growing attached to and in love with is in a new body every day. And it's the same consciousness, it's the same personality.
She does open up at one point. She tells her sister, and the sister doesn't believe her and tattles.
And that's it.
Right. Yeah, there isn't really any follow through.
Yeah.
So
and it's really only so like Ree has a friend that is introduced briefly in the movie. It's this guy that like they've been friends forever, but they don't really hang out or talk much.
Right.
And A gets put into his mind or his body, which seems sort of perfect at the time, and she like sort of convinces A to stay in that body,
which he figures out A figures out how to do at some point.
Yeah, it's sort of like resisting the change. Normally he would just let it slip away because he knows it's not his body, and like that person has a life and family and everything. But he sort of ignores that in hopes to be with
Rhiannon, but she goes by Ree generally. Okay.
I know I've said it like 1,000 times already.
No, you've said it right. I would have stopped you.
But then like there's this whole conversation that they have like on their last date where he's like, I can't, he has a family and this isn't right for me.
And he sort of, I mean, in very small ways does start fucking up this kid's life.
Yeah, he doesn't, since he's not that person, he forgets his own birthday.
Right, yeah, and it's an interesting concept. I kept, you know how at the beginning of the movie there's like exposition and you're just like waiting for the plot to start?
Yeah.
That was sort of the whole movie.
Yeah.
I was like, when is a conflict going to take over? Because in the book, one of the conflicts you mentioned, A takes over this.
I didn't give him a name.
Nathan, I think is the kid's name, and he claims that Nathan's gay. So it's revealed that Nathan is kind of like a crazy Christian who believes that he's been possessed by the devil.
Yeah, on this one night he sort of like blacks out and doesn't know what happened.
And wakes up in a car on the side of the road and has no idea. So it just assumes that the devil has taken over him and is kind of driven crazy by this. So he's trying to find who A is and how to communicate with him, and that ends up being a major plot point in the book, and it's not in the movie at all. Yeah,
and the only thing I didn't mention it is that because A is jumping from body to body, they decide that they're going to take a picture of the person that he's in and put it on this Instagram page to sort of like not track, but like, you know, to leave
just as a
something
record.
behind. And in the movie, they say that, you know, Nathan saw the account or something and realized that this was the devil's Instagram or something. And you were telling me that there's like a blog post or an email thing.
Yeah, in the book. Yeah, in the book, A and Rhiannon emailed.
Yeah.
and A did not log out of his email account, and that's how Nathan found it and ended up being able to contact him. The book was obviously written a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Before Instagram. I mean, honestly, before... Well, no, it couldn't really have been before the prevalence of texting. Because he and Ree were emailing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
it wasn't one of the books that I felt the need to ever bring with me anywhere.
Right. I mean, it was a cool concept, but it never really, like, realized itself.
Yeah, I kept feeling like the point was right there, but
Yeah.
they were just missing it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, anyway, we saw a movie. It was mediocre. Don't see it in theaters. Not
No,
necessary.
if you want to watch it, I would wait.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not super remarkable, but, I mean, it's a cool idea, and it is, like, a young adult
Right.
story, so if you're interested in that, you'll get some feels. Because,
If you're interested in reading a David Levithan book, start with Boy Meets Boy, because it is heartwarming and just delightful. So anyway,
yeah.
what were we going to talk about also?
I don't know if we had anything to talk about.
We do.
All right.
I wanted to give the people an update on how you're doing with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, because we haven't really talked about it since we started.
Yeah.
We also have DollHouse to talk about.
Yeah, no, I knew DollHouse. I forgot about Harry Potter.
Right.
I mean,
How dare you?
Listen.
Yeah, I know.
This is the problem I'm having with the 7th book, is that it's dull.
Yeah, and
It's
we
not
haven't even gotten
gripping
to camping yet.
Yeah, I mean, the coolest thing that just happened was that they were in the Ministry. And
Spoilers for Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows.
Okay, I think I'm probably one of the only people that hasn't read it.
Riley Shanahan just finished those books.
That I keep getting, like, scolded every time it's mentioned to your friends. Like,
I know, it's rough.
What?
But that's more they can't believe that I am dating someone.
Yeah, well, guess what? I can't read.
They're on audiobook, but anyway.
Yeah, that's why we're listening to them.
And it's
because
amazing.
I can't read.
Jim Dale is an angel, a treasure.
Yeah.
But
also, I never had this much time in the car.
Truth.
As we've had going from, Williamsburg to Boston to Pittsburgh to
Because honestly,
Utah.
the cross-country drives, we listen to the least Harry Potter.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. But so we're on about chapter 13, I think,
Yeah.
which puts us like a third of the way through the book.
And I mean, it's cool. It's not...
Is there anything that's grabbing you?
Not like the others.
Yeah.
And the problem that you keep mentioning, that it's pretty evident in this book, is that, like, there's no real format to it, and there's no real... although it... In some ways, it is the culmination of all these years and, like, what it's sort of been building to, but at the same time, it veered off to make its own story.
Exactly.
And, like, kind of using the outer workings of the other books to tell its own separate tale of what Harry Potter is going through this time.
Right. Like, this book could have so easily just been finishing up all of the existing, like, plot points.
Yeah, but it introduces new ones.
The fucking Deathly Hallows themselves and all the shit with Dumbledore. Like, why are you gonna make me hate Dumbledore now?
In the last book, that seems real shitty.
He's dead.
Like,
a man has died.
Yeah. And, like, I love Dumbledore. Like, I mean, and we had this conversation at the beginning when we started.
We've had
on
it
Sorcerer's
continuously.
Stone, that, like, you'll see that, Dumbledore isn't always the coolest dude, but, like, hearing Jim Dale specifically read it, he feels like a grandfather that you just, like, want to trust with all your heart. And we haven't sort of gotten there yet with Dumbledore and all of his shit with Grindelwald.
Life and lies.
Yeah. But, like, yeah, how would you do that to that character?
Right, and why?
And, like, yeah, so, like, he dies, spoilers, at the end of book 6, and, like, you're sort of undoing everything we've thought about Dumbledore up to this point. And one could be like, well, technically, if they're just talking about what he's done, then his actions in the other books are sort of making up for it. But he doesn't really do enough in the other books to do that. So it just becomes Dumbledore's a dick.
Right, and I'm trying to think, like, I mean, we'll get to more of this as we get farther through the book, but, like, because we haven't really properly met the Hallows themselves yet at this point.
I mean, I've seen the movies, so I kind of
right.
I have
roughly
what happens,
but like I'm trying because there just doesn't seem to be any real significance to shitting all over Dumbledore.
No.
And I mean, the guy has done some reprehensible things,
yeah.
But
and there's
also,
things he could have done differently.
Right, specifically leaving Harry to be raised in neglect by the Dursleys. That really bothers me. But also, my other issue with the seventh book, it's the only one that is not framed within a school year at Hogwarts.
Yeah.
So it's just everywhere.
It's
there
all
are
over
no
the place.
parameters. There are little like vignette stories that happen and conclude, and then we move on. And it's difficult to find the thread of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And like the thread of the other books has been very easy because we know how it starts, we know how it has to end. And I mean, yeah, it's formulaic, but the formula's good.
Yeah.
And they're different, the details are different enough that it never felt formulaic, or if it did, it felt contained.
Yeah, and I think too, like the introduction of the Deathly Hallows, cool idea, but it could have just as easily been Harry Potter and the remaining Horcruxes or something like that.
And the dealing with the problems that got set forth in the previous 6 books.
Yeah, like, you know, they have a lot of shit they're trying to do. Why introduce a whole nother plot?
Right.
Especially if it's the last book. Like,
exactly.
Because then you have to not only finish all the threads you started, but finish the new one you started.
Yeah, tell a whole story that you're trying to shoehorn in there.
If you want to do the Deathly Hallows as its own thing, make it
a spin-off.
Make it another. Well, then you get the Cursed Child. But like, you could totally make it something different, or like a compendium series. I don't know if that's the word.
I don't either. But yeah, I mean, it could. I don't know
what
you're talking about. But...
I don't either. Because the Deathly Hallows, was Dumbledore ever like investigating that?
Yes.
Yeah. So like you could do like a Dumbledore series, like the Harry Potter series, but with Dumbledore as the main character, and then tell all of the Grindelwald shit, like, but have it set before Harry Potter and all that shit. So
have
like
the gay question answered in the text.
Yes.
That way nobody has to fucking do this.
And it doesn't become a plot point in Fantastic Beasts 2.
Right. And like I was talking to we hung out with my friend Mallory last week, and I don't know why I started this because I don't know how to do it sensitively.
You've already started.
Mallory's gay, and I asked her what her thoughts were on the proposed omission of Dumbledore and Grindelwald's sexuality. And she told me that she is a strong proponent of what's called death of the author. Mm-hmm. So when J.K. Rowling, which John Green is also a huge fan of, when J.K. Rowling sent that last version of the book off to be published, her authority over it ends. And that was already my opinion, which we've already talked about on here. But not to pull I'm a good ally, I have a gay friend, but I talked to one of my gay friends about it. I mean, she was like, yeah, no, it's bullshit. It
good enough to get perspective.
Right.
Because like, how does it interpret to you versus how it interprets for somebody who it's actually geared towards, kind of.
Exactly. Like somebody who is affected by the topic at hand.
But it was just a tweet that J.K. Rowling sent out.
That has suddenly become, like,
the
fandom
focal point
law.
Of, like, So you always have those two sort of factions of, like, people who, like, J.K. Rowling can do no wrong.
Right.
And,
she's
like,
the
everything
queen.
she says is law.
And I wish she would stop.
Well, yeah. I mean, but at the same time, like, this happened with Star Wars shit when George Lucas, like, started revamping or, like, re-editing shit in his movies because he had a vision for it, but, like, he didn't have it the first time and wanted it to do it something different with, like, Han and Greedo, that whole thing. Han shooting first.
I was gonna say it, but I'd fucked it up once already, so.
So, like, authors do it, or creators do it, and... I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say because it is their shit. The story itself belongs to you, but they can do whatever they want to it. You can choose not to believe it. That's the thing we don't talk about.
Once a novel is published, you can't.
Yeah, but once a movie is finished, and then they make a new one, and then slap it on a DVD, and then send that DVD out,
Right, but
that's another edition of the movie.
There is a format for that with movies. There isn't with books. Like, you have...
Don't you have updated editions of books?
Not that change the story. They're like new covers, or it has a new foreword or something.
I mean, like, okay, so textbooks and actual, like, novels are different, but, like, when you have a textbook and it's updated information, you get another edition of the book.
Right.
Is there not an equivalent for novels?
No, I mean, I can think of scattered examples.
Yeah.
Like Neil Gaiman, when he first had American Gods published, there was a lot cut out of it, and he wasn't happy about it. So he pushed to do what he called a director's cut version of the book. But there's not like a standard for that with novels.
So it's kind of
it's not, because I mean, then
territory.
Authors could just put out like infinite versions.
I mean,
Which would be awful. I would hate that.
But they could do it.
No, that's what fan fiction's for. Like,
okay,
if you
but
want
if it's
to
fan
write a
fiction
spin-off,
from the
like,
author,
I don't care. I can't deal with it. Cursed Child is fan fiction. No one will convince me otherwise.
okay, but like, was she?
Are we doing this right now, or are we going to talk about DollHouse?
I'm just curious. God, you want to have a conversation and stop it when I want to talk?
We're just nearing an hour, which I know you don't care about.
I don't give a shit about it. It's our podcast, and I'm in control.
So it's your podcast.
No,
Why did not you warn me?
Listen. Fine, we'll move on.
Like, if you have more things to say about Harry Potter, great. But if we're gonna keep fighting the death of the author,
fighting about it. I was just. It's an interesting conversation that I don't ever want to end because there's so much we can talk about it. All right. Since you have no patience for anything.
Nope.
We're gonna talk about DollHouse, which we finished this week.
Because it's only 26 episodes. It wasn't
that
that
was
much
real
of
quick.
a challenge.
Basically, between last episode and this episode, we finished
it in its entirety.
Yeah. Including
and we took
the
a couple days
unaired
off.
episode. Yeah, we did. Because we were... Was that just because we were moving around? Or...
Yeah, I think so.
Because we had to go to Pittsburgh to do job interviews and apartment hunt.
And it's... Being an adult sucks.
Yeah, but we both got jobs.
We did.
And we found an apartment, so, like, success.
Yeah, it was a good 2 days.
Yeah.
But anyway, DollHouse.
We've talked about what the show is.
Yeah, we've talked about the premise.
These people basically volunteer to have their minds wiped. Well, every podcast is somebody's first podcast.
Fuck off, Kevin.
Don't call me that. So people volunteer to have their minds wiped, and basically their bodies are used for this service that basically only the rich have access to, where they can request a certain personality and that person gets it, like through the use of a hard drive and this mind zapping chair.
Very sci-fi technology.
It's super cool, and it was done by Joss Whedon. So a lot of the same people that he's worked with are the characters in the movie, in the show.
Right.
It's very cinematic though. And like the first season is very like we go on these different engagements with the main character, who's Echo, who is like super important, not just because she's the main character, but like important to the company that's doing these unspeakable things with humans in their minds.
The company in this universe,
it's all the company,
is Rossum Pharmaceutical.
Rossum Pharmaceuticals, who have developed the technology to wipe people's minds and insert new personalities in them.
Which obviously is never going to be used for anything bad.
Yeah.
That's only
it's
good.
Just for sex.
Right.
Which really got on my nerves, but like at the same time, I mean, what else are you gonna do?
People who have a lot of money who can get anything else.
And you kept like saying that it's more than that, and like it is, but it's also just they do way too much. They don't do a lot of threading of the needle, and we have discussed maybe it's because they thought they had more time and they just didn't use the time that they did have.
Right. The first season is almost entirely setting up how this world works.
Yeah, and the importance of Echo, because we start learning that like you can wipe somebody's mind, but certain things can latch on.
Yeah, certain things cannot be wiped.
Like certain phrases or actions that Echo's experienced on these engagements sort of stick with her after she's been wiped again.
Right, and one of the other examples of this is there are two other, they're called dolls.
Yeah, or actives.
Or actives. There are two other dolls in the house, Victor and Sierra. And what happens is that Victor and Sierra manage to fall in love with each other in this doll state. Mm-hmm. So they don't have any active personality inserted in them. This is how they exist when they're not being sent out on engagements. They're just very neutral, kind of dumb.
Yeah, docile.
Yeah, docile. That's
they
a
don't
good word for
ask questions or...
They do what they're told.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, they can be influenced. So if they're going to get a treatment, they can be like, go get a massage. And they'll be like, I like massagers. And
massages
like,
are relaxing.
Yeah. And, like, fuck off and do that
right.
thing. Or,
I
like,
enjoy my treatments.
Yeah. Very easily to manipulate.
Yeah.
And these two, they start grouping, which is a common thing among dolls.
It's a common thing among herd animals. So it starts being seen in the house, and Topher, who's the the scientist behind all of this, he's young,
too smart for his own good.
Too smart for his own good, no moral compass, is just like blown away by his own genius.
Yeah.
So he starts noticing that they're grouping, and it freaks him out because they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
But the grouping becomes so much more, and it starts bleeding through, like, throughout the series. When Victor and Sierra get imprinted with a new personality, they can't shake the fact that there's somebody important to them.
Yeah.
And it then becomes Victor is on a romantic engagement, air quotes, and he stops and says, I can't do this. Right. Because it wouldn't be fair to you because I'm in love with someone else.
Yeah, and they're not supposed to do that because their personalities and all of basically their responses are kind of already programmed into them.
Everything is programmed. They're not supposed to be thinking for themselves.
Yeah. And so season 2 is very much all of that. Mm-hmm. And then the underlying cause for Rossum and this idea of, like, mind wiping, like, there's spoilers, but there's this whole plot of creating a handheld wiping device. So basically you can go up to anybody and wipe them and imprint a new personality right on the spot instead of having them come in, sit in the chair, go through the process of it and all this other shit.
Right, which serves to regulate it.
Yeah.
So it's not such a weapon.
Yeah. So we sort of start getting this, Rossum is up to no good thing. And there's just so much of it, like, you don't know who's a doll and who isn't, and, like, they can imprint people, like, they can imprint personalities on top of personalities. Mm-hmm. Like, there's this one plot with the senator who they've imprinted his own life onto him, but increased some things like ambition and whatnot to serve Rossum in the political side of things. And
yeah, they
really
did, like,
cool,
a cut and paste job on who he is.
Because he was, like, a frat boy that just didn't amount to anything.
Yeah, he was like a burnout, like, of a famous, like, a big political family. He was the screw up. Yeah, so they used his pedigree and imprinted a better personality on top of his own life. Because Rossum needed somebody in Washington so that, they could continue doing whatever the fuck they wanted to do in their labs without facing consequences for it. Yeah, and then the other cool thing is, like, there's this whole, basically... So Echo's introduced, and then there's this whole, like, well, who was the Echo before Echo? And we get this character, Alpha, who... who, first of all, is Alan Tudyk. Yeah, and it's just fantastic. We were watching the episode where Alan Tudyk shows up, and at this point, Alpha has been mentioned a lot, but we haven't seen him. Yeah. And I'm sitting there so tense because I fucking know that Matt is going to ask me if Alan Tudyk is Alpha. And he looks over and he's like, is he Alpha? And I just like, shriek, don't ask me any questions. Because like, I've seen a lot of shit. And Alan Tudyk, the character he was playing, I just loved him so much. Yeah. Because he's like this pot farmer, basically. He's, and like, they're medicinal carrots that I'm holding for a friend. Anyway. And, like, being real weird and, like,
sort of agoraphobic and like over the top character that Alan Tudyk can do so well.
Yeah.
And then I'm just thinking like this would be pretty perfect if he was Alpha. And sure enough, like a moment later, they
knives
introduced
come out.
that it's Alpha, and it's fucking cool as hell.
Right. But Alpha, sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Alpha was one of the dolls. They all have the military, like Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. Like that's how they name them.
Yeah.
So where was I going with it? Alpha was one of the dolls. And he experienced what they call a composite event. So normally the process for these dolls is they're in doll state, they get imprinted with a personality, they go out on an engagement, they come back, they get wiped, and the personality goes away. With Alpha, all of the personalities that he had ever been sort of got like dumped into his head all at once.
Yeah, so he has like 50 different people inside his head.
And not all of them were nice people.
No.
One of them was very good with knives. And he ran through the dollhouse slashing up a bunch of people and left.
But kept Echo alive.
Right.
So they sort of thread that needle at the beginning. Like, Alpha directs this FBI agent who's looking for Caroline, who is really Echo, just to get them basically in the same room so that Alpha can make Echo like him.
Right. Can make her composite.
Yeah, dump all of these personalities into her head and make her his equal.
Right. Because he sees himself as sort of godlike.
Yeah,
like the next level of human evolution.
Exactly. To transcend and evolve and all this other shit.
Yeah.
Very cult shit.
Right.
The thing is, so it makes Alpha a composite. That she goes through the composite event, but she's still like, no. Like, she resists.
Right.
Which is the special thing about Echo. She is able to resist all these wipes and keep these composites in her head. So when she learns that, Echo isn't who she is, that there's another personality that was her first,
right,
she wants to sort of save Caroline. But at the same time, she starts developing a sense of self. Like, she doesn't want to be wiped.
Right. So Caroline, at the beginning, before the series starts, is taken by Rossum and sort of given the option that she can either, I mean, it's not ever explicitly said, but she can be a doll for 5 years or they're going to kill her.
Yeah.
So Caroline goes through the wipe and becomes Echo. I wasn't sure if that was entirely
I
clear.
don't think we said that.
So
it can get confusing.
Right. The other interesting thing about Echo versus Alpha is that all of the personalities have made Alpha crazy. Like, he is not functioning well with all of these things dumped in his head. Echo,
he's talking to himself and like...
Right, and he's like twitchy and something is clearly up. But Echo is able to function and to flip between all of these imprints to get information that she needs or skills that will help her. So she's able to use it and to navigate it, whereas Alpha wasn't ever able to do that.
Basically still stay Echo.
Right.
Like, she can jump into these other personalities who have different names and different lives altogether, but still retain that she is Echo and using that information to proceed with whatever mission they're doing.
And Echo was never supposed to have sentience. So once Echo realizes sort of her own personhood within all of this, she becomes resistant to wanting to give the body back to Caroline. Because, I mean, she knows that it's the right thing to do, but at the same time, she doesn't want to be erased.
Yeah, because she is her own person now.
Yeah, which was an accident.
Yeah.
But season 2 is... a lot of things happen very quickly, and honestly, a lot of the episodes could span a season, like the stuff that's brought up.
I really wish there was at least one more season so that they didn't have to rush everything towards the end there.
Because it gets very post-apocalyptic quick.
During the original run of the show, there were 12 episodes aired and one unaired for the way Fox ordered the episodes and shit like that, and the show had been canceled or something. But there are these 2 episodes at the beginning or at the end of season 1 and season 2 called Epitaph 1 and 2 respectively. And they basically flash forward to 2019, where shit's just gone so wrong. Imprinting has sort of become like not wide consumer.
I mean, it's weaponized.
It's weaponized. So like there are people that are the actuals who want to destroy people who have been imprinted, and then there's like the resistance who doesn't want to work with the tech at all. And like
it's very crazy,
very
messy.
crazy and convoluted and very Terminator-y. Especially when this show came out around the same time as the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Nailed it.
Yeah, I've been struggling with that alliteration for some time. But it's a very cool idea, but it would benefit to have that be its own season.
Yeah, the epitaph episodes. So like, if we can't have 9 seasons of DollHouse, then ideally we have season 1 to set it up, season 2 to establish that we're fighting Rossum, and then season 3 to be the epitaphs.
What Rossum's main goal is and all this other stuff. Because they explore things with like military having one consciousness.
Like a hive mind. Yeah. It's so cool.
And they're just done away with in one episode, and it sucks because they're so cool. There's so many different ways that you can go with the story that, if Rossum and its plan were more of season 2, and then season 3 being the epitaphs, like them going and finding what they need to find to destroy and then give every character that we've grown to love, even in such a short amount of time,
right?
With these 2 seasons, like giving them a well-deserved send-off, because Topher's
exit is pretty good.
No, it is very good, but I would have loved to see the decline happen over time, because he starts in certain events that happen through season 2 mostly. He starts developing a moral compass kind of, and to see it go from that to the epitaph, which is
world.
Like so this is 2000, so 10 years in the future,
right?
It would have been such a cool story to see develop. Because he's a character we love.
Yeah, I mean,
it's still heartbreaking and like does fit, but
I think he's my favorite character. Probably.
Oh yeah, I think he's the best character.
Yeah,
DeWitt's garbage.
I love DeWitt.
You shouldn't.
But the other thing that I want to talk about, just because I think this was so cool, like Rossum has a fucking plan.
Yeah.
From the get-go, and one of the things that we learn they're doing in season 2 is so there are 22, about to be 23 DollHouses around the world, and they've tasked each house has a Topher equivalent.
Yeah.
And they've tasked each one of those scientists with developing a certain, it seems like a small, relatively harmless tool. Like Topher's is to do remote wipes.
Train.
And each house has a tiny project like that Topher figures out is a component of a much larger, scarier thing that's able to wipe and imprint anyone at any time without having active architecture in their head. Or
because that's the whole thing. They sort of have to remap the brain to accept
be able
these
to do
wipes.
That.
And this device would bypass that and just be able to imprint. And
so it sort of takes the consent out of it almost.
Yeah.
But Topher figures out not only that that's what they're doing, but he figures out how to make the whole fucking thing.
Yeah.
And he does, because he is an arrogant boy genius.
Yeah.
And then when we flash forward to these epitaphs, and it's so heartbreaking because he's become unhinged under the knowledge that this is his fault. Like, he created that tech.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, and
Crans.
Yeah,
That's
we're not gonna spoil the ending.
No,
but I still tear up when I think about it. I first watched this years ago.
Yeah, if you've ever seen Cabin in the Woods, which is another Joss Whedon thing, he plays the Shaggy character. No, he doesn't. He's a stoner in that one.
Okay.
That's the only difference, because he does actually call a lot of the things that are happening around him.
You seen his drawer of inappropriate starches?
But he's a fantastic actor, and he is the best character on the show. His storyline
is fantastic. The other cool thing, a very typical Joss Whedon thing, is that there are a lot of strong female characters, strong in different ways, which is which is very cool. I love Adele DeWitt runs the DollHouse, and she is smart and she's unflappable and she does what she needs to do without making a big deal about it. And we could debate the ethics of Adele DeWitt for days, and we have.
Just the one thing I think doesn't make any logical sense for what she was doing.
Do you want me to get into
No,
this?
we don't have to.
Okay. Watch DollHouse, and we'll talk if you're interested.
Yeah, but it was definitely a good show, and for how short it is, you should definitely watch it.
Because you get super invested, even though there's only 26 episodes.
Yeah, and there's also a comic that sort of clears up the times between Epitaph 1 and 2, since they're at the ends of both seasons.
Right.
Which I haven't read yet, but I'm
neither.
gonna find it, because that part I would definitely like to see more of. And a lot of season 2 would have been cool if they elaborated on it.
Yeah, to have it more fleshed
Yeah.
out. And I mean, we were both sort of reading up on what was happening because, the Epitaph episodes were aired weirdly, and it was
the first one wasn't aired during its run.
Right.
They were put on the DVD as sort of an incentive to buy the DVD.
And this was against the wishes of Joss Whedon. So it sounded like Whedon and Fox were sort of arguing the whole time about what they wanted the show to be, which I'm sure is a large part of the reason why it was canceled. The other thing is the budget for season 2 is significantly less than it was for season 1, which doesn't really show.
No, in fact, I think season 2 is stronger than season 1.
I told you from the beginning.
Yeah, no, for sure. They do a lot more storytelling, and it doesn't require a lot of not production value, because it feels the same as season 1, but just amped up a little more.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe it's just because the stakes are higher or something, but it works.
Yeah.
So definitely see that. And since we finished that, we've sort of come up with, because we're kind of just going through the pantheon of television that both of us have watched.
Right.
So we've sort of compromised on our next show, which is actually 2 shows.
Because we both, Matt is really into Doctor Who,
The Dr. Danko.
Right, shockingly, which I've never really gotten into.
Yeah.
And shockingly, given how much I have just talked about Joss Whedon, I'm a pretty big Whedon fan. Even at some point, we'll talk about what's happened with him recently, but not right now. But I mean, when you think Joss Whedon, you think Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
So we have decided that
we would switch off instead of just plowing through an entire series like we've been doing. We will watch one or a few episodes of either Buffy or Doctor Who and then switch off.
I think we said a season.
Oh, did we? Oh, yeah. We would do a season?
So a season of Doctor Who and then a season of Buffy. And
that way we, we don't burn each other out on one particular thing.
Because both of these are long.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to Buffy. I watched sporadic episodes throughout, but you've watched the entirety of it.
Twice.
Yeah.
And I think you'll like Buffy a lot.
Yeah,
I know that you like
Seth
DollHouse,
Green
but Buffy is right up your alley.
Right, yeah. No, I'm all for it. I wish, this show I used to watch, Big Wolf on Campus, which is a Monster of the Week type show where this kid gets werewolf abilities in high school and he's the jock. Yeah, it is, but it's Canadian. No, I guess Michael J. Fox is Canadian too.
Teen Wolf is garbage, but I love it with my whole heart.
Oh, you're talking about the show.
Yes, the MTV
show.
Not
the movie with Michael J. Fox.
No.
Okay, well that's...
I was like, why is he talking about Michael J. Fox?
Yeah, he's the original Teen Wolf.
Whatever.
And then Jason Bateman takes up the mantle in the sequel.
Then Tyler Posey on MTV.
Yeah, the MTV garbage show is fine. It's a CW type.
Right.
And for the kids.
I will say that once Where Jaguars got introduced, I was like, I'm out. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, that's garbage.
Yeah, it's too much.
But no, Big Wolf on Campus was just a small, 3-season kids show. But it was very cool. And they do a Buffy the Vampire Slayer parody in the episode. But yeah, so we're gonna do that. I'm looking forward to actually sitting down and watching through Buffy. And with Doctor Who, I mean, you might not dig every episode. You're probably gonna like less than half of them. But
it's important to you.
It is important to me, and it's more of the storytelling part of it that I think you'll dig. But
Right, and I mean, it's such a huge part of nerd culture that I'm at least slightly curious.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
And it's not overrated, and the Doctor Who fans that exist out there can be shitty, as with any fandom. But Doctor Who sometimes seem more aggressive.
I think there are just more of them.
Probably.
Because the show has been running so long.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the whole super Hulock thing
that's another
which
thing.
has disappeared off of Tumblr like completely. It's like we all just snapped and realized, oh my god, this is garbage.
It's awesome.
It's awesome.
They erased that memory.
Wiped us.
Okay, so this has been a good episode, I think.
It has. I'm happy with it.
I didn't get to say this before because we cut me off, and that's fine.
I'm garbage. Continue.
No, you're not garbage, but that is a nice nickname for you. I'll start calling you that.
I'm gonna knock the mic over.
Please don't. It was a gift from the guys talking about shit podcast. So you probably have seen me share it on Facebook. The few listeners we have. But the guys talking about shit podcasts have just got on iTunes and Stitcher and soon to be Google Play. I was in the process of doing such things. So it's not sort of me copying them, but all of us joining one community, because Why Did Not You Warn Me is now available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, soon to be iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and there's one more, I think.
Not SoundCloud, because they were specific.
SoundCloud was too weird with how they do it. But basically, anywhere you get podcasts, you can now get Why Did Not You Warn Me?
Hey, we're so legit.
So yeah, you can download episodes and save them forever, because, this is going to last.
Why wouldn't you want to?
4 more months, and then we're done. No, I'm kidding.
It's going to last at least all of 2018.
Yes, we're going to have at least 52 episodes. That's the goal. And then we'll do a season 2, hopefully. We'll see. Maybe branch out for other shows. But
listen, I'm only committed to this relationship as far as October 1st of this year.
Yeah, but then you get to renew your lease, and then we'll see.
We will see.
We'll see what's in store for us.
Watch what happens.
Even though you don't renew your lease, you're still contracted to do this podcast. So it's going to be awkward if you don't renew your lease. So you're stuck, at least for a little bit longer.
Why did not you warn me?
It's in the title.
All right, it's been fun.
All right, I'm your host, Matthew, the Dr. Danko.
And I'm Hillary Crum, and I'm here too.